Good afternoon. My name is Freedom Fox Richardson. I'm a Fold 19 initiate of the Roll Up Salon chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I have the absolute honor of co-hosting Women in Politics, a celebration, achievements worth celebrating year round with the Jeria Boone. Jeria is a great friend of mine from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She served as a field organizer in the Wisconsin Democratic Party. For those of you that are not familiar, the Wisconsin Democratic Party was instrumental in getting President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris elected. They also played a significant role in the elections of John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock in Georgia. I think the commonalities in these two instances that I see is not just advancements and political wins made possible by women, but in particular Black women who had some of the highest voter turnouts in states like Wisconsin and Georgia. And so to make sense of it, to give women their credit, to give them their flowers, particularly Black women that powered these Democratic victories, I thought I'd bring on one who I consider a great friend of mine to unpack all of this and talk a little bit about her journey, what she does to advance causes of social justice and equity and women's rights, women's healthcare, and certainly kind of her podcast, which is the Black Girls Politics podcast. Black Girls Pod, is that what it is? BG Pod?
Black Girl Politics podcast. It's BGP Pod because Instagram, somebody has our name on Instagram, but it's like a mute account. No shade to them, but if y'all want to report them.
no, you're right. No shade at all. But I do want to go ahead and get started because Jeria has been more than gracious and given us so much of her time, especially because we tried this on Instagram Live maybe 3 times. Jeria's Wi-Fi just was in and out and spotty. So we just decided, let's go ahead and do it as a Zoom call. We can certainly make this more intimate and more of a conversation as opposed to a Q&A. So that's what we're running with. So at this time, I will stop talking and certainly concede space to Jeria. Jeria, tell us your name, where you're from, maybe where you go to school as well, and then kind of the work that you do.
Yeah. First, let me start off by saying it was Freedom's janky Wi-Fi. But I am Jeria from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I attend University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, graduating in December. And I was an organizer for Biden-Harris in Wisconsin. I was also a communications associate. So I was like, if you all have been on campaigns, I was the liaison between organizing and comms. There's not a liaison. Things don't flow. We would have lost Wisconsin. I was also organizer for Warnock Ossoff, also an organizer for a Supreme Court race here in Wisconsin. It was, for lack of a better term, it was just a mess. The day before the election, we were told that the election was off. And then like 30 minutes later, they're like, just kidding. So we had an election in the middle of a pandemic. We still won. But yeah, I organize a lot. I was 30 under 30 scholar or fellow, or I don't even know what it's called. And I was also an intern on Capitol Hill. And I have a podcast. Follow us on Instagram at BGP Pod. But we just talk about, my best friend Jada and I are co-hosts, and we just talk about the uniqueness of being Black women in this political space that's majority male dominated.
Yeah.
So we just bring a unique perspective.
For sure. So, and shameless plug with the little username and tag at the end. I'll let that slide. But no, Jeria, thanks so much for certainly making time for my frat brothers and I, our chapter on campus, and certainly this discussion that I think is necessary to have. You talk about all the great work that you've done with in Wisconsin, in Georgia, on the national level. You were a Forbes 30 under 30 fellow. What has inspired you this far? What particular woman or group of women, maybe even a movement of women that kind of has called you to do this work?
Yeah. So most recently, it's been Stacey Abrams. She's been playing a long game for the past like 10-ish, 15 years. She's been telling us for years, Georgia is not rigged. Georgia is voter suppressed. So when she lost her election in, I believe it was 2018, she continued to fight. She didn't give up. She didn't lay down, which is more than I could say for myself. But she fought to ensure that Georgia was blue. And I think like her doing that really changed the game for the South, because the South has the highest concentration of Black people, specifically Black women, the backbone of the Democratic Party. And if we just to turn out and show up, if we compete, we win. So hopefully the Democratic Party has learned, and in 2022 and 2024, we're competing everywhere. Because for me, like, I know it's probably different for you, but I'm from a blue, or I'm from a purple state. Every election, we win by a field margin. I think we won Wisconsin by 22,000 votes, which breaks down to like 3 votes per neighborhood. So we have commercials, like they come to Wisconsin nonstop every year. And I think that should be the reality all across the South, especially in these like rural areas where these Black people are concentrated.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then even to unpack that one there, Stacey Abrams, I believe, and this can be argued, and I'll certainly argue it down. But Stacey Abrams should have certainly been the governor of the state of Georgia, had it not been for the Secretary of State, who, for reference, the state Secretary of State is responsible for the history and the archives and the electoral processes that take place statewide and on a municipal and local level. So to have the Secretary of State overseeing the votes cast and in a race that he's the candidate for governor, I think objectively we can agree it's ethically muddy. But yeah, you had poll centers closing earlier than anticipated. You had voter centers closed months beforehand. You had about 120,000 plus voters purged off the rolls. But I mean, to the point that you made, Stacey Abrams certainly took a week, sometime, a week, maybe 2 weeks max, I believe, and collecting herself, because certainly losing is not something that any of us take lightly. But she then said, okay, I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else. And so she takes that determination that fired, and it fuels her passion to register more folks to vote than the folks that were purged from the rolls. I think she's registered more than 1.2 million people in Georgia through her Fair Fight initiative. So Stacey Abrams is just one of many Black and Black women, field organizers, grassroots organizers that are literally powering the winds of the Democratic Party. And I'm sure any other political movement that you look at. So I think she's great. Yeah, you said it best. You said that Georgia isn't a ruby red state. It's a voter suppressed state. And I think similarly, because of the concentration of African-American voters in the South, national parties, both Republican, Democrat, even independent, certainly shouldn't take that for granted. So understandable as to why she's certainly that inspiration for you. And certainly her achievements aren't exclusive to women. So though she's been able to mobilize them in a way that's been impactful, you talk about, because of her advocacy, because of her persistence and her determination, you talk about different policies at the federal level. You talk about different policies at the state level in Georgia. You talk about the balance of power, who controls it on the national level. And certainly while it was a Black woman that made those advancements happen, certainly those contributions are worth celebrating year round, and certainly aren't, women aren't the only beneficiaries there.
Yes, definitely.
For sure.
We stand Stacey. Really appreciate her.
Yes. But no, maybe who else?
I think I really want to highlight Claudette Colvin. She refused to give up her bus seat about 4 or 5 months before Rosa Parks did.
Right.
Her name is not plastered everywhere, but she was a 15 or 16-year-old pregnant dark-skinned girl who literally could have died not giving up her seat. And what she did sparked the NAACP to plan Rosa Parks incident. And like, it's just very inspiring, like somebody that young sparking the movement to the extent that she did. I'm sure she never thought that would lead to the whole civil rights movement, the March on Washington, all those things. But it's very inspiring to see like young people doing the work. And we forget like the civil rights movement, like all these old people are like, young people, y'all need to sit down, y'all need to wait your turn. But like the civil rights movement was led by teenagers and college students. So yeah, just highlighting young people in the movement.
For sure. And then, you even talk about like the role that identity politics played in that. Literally, they thought that Rosa Parks was a little bit more palatable for lighter complexioned constituents. And so you talk about Claudette Colvin, who literally is, they didn't want her as the face of the movement, the face of the boycott of the bus systems there, because she had a child out of wedlock, and she was dark-skinned. But you talk about, had it not been for that woman there, I mean, you certainly would have not had Rosa Parks, and you certainly would have not been able to integrate the busing systems in that area of the country. So major props. Again, contributions worth celebrating year round. Can't reiterate that one enough. Because again, and you can speak to this more so, these aren't achievements that just women benefit from. I think, Black men or anyone of any marginalized community, be it Black men, Hispanic peoples, you talk about Native and Indigenous communities, or Asian American Pacific Islander communities. Like this is something that makes their lives a little bit easier. Because of that contribution, certainly we're able to breathe easier. We're able to transport ourselves more equitably in a way that I think is certainly incredible.
Yeah. And I think, like, just going back to the identity politics, it's something to unpack even with the Black Lives Matter movement. Just like when we see who we decide to get behind, who steps we decide to get behind, because more often than not, they're like light-skinned men or like very light-skinned women, and then like the darker skinned people are completely disregarded, or like the people who might have been a little resistant are completely disregarded. And like all Black people, or all people in general, are they deserve protection no matter what they've done in the past, no matter what happens.
Right.
So, yeah.
For sure. Jerry, hit me with one more. What is a woman of yours that is an icon, that is historic and deserving in her own right, in commemoration of Women's History Month, which just can't be celebrated only in March? While it's highlighted in March, we've got to make sure that we celebrate, empower, and uplift the causes of women all year long.
Yes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I knew you were going to say that one. Go ahead.
Nothing and feisty. I really appreciate politics. She's changed what a politician looks like. Before the incoming 2018 Congress, politicians were very stuffy. They weren't like your average Joe. And like between her, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Lauren Underwood, like all these people,
Ayanna Presley.
Ayanna
Presley. That's your best friend. Yes. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. But you couldn't see people who looked like you in Congress. Like not even just like representation, but just like people who you'd see at the grocery store, like your average neighbor. And the way that AOC does the work and like ensures that we understand what's going on in politics. We understand what these bills mean. What she's just been fighting a good fight, fighting for equity across the board, ensuring that people have a place to live, are able to feed their families, like at minimum. So love her. She's always on Twitch, like just telling us, yes, this is what this means. Because for too long, politics has been too inaccessible for the average person. Like if you're not paying attention nonstop, you have no idea what's going on. So she's just this girl from the Bronx, very badass girl from the Bronx. And she's like, I can do it. You can do it. Let me tell you, people see her at Costco all the time, walking around with her dog. Like, love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I think, objectively speaking, excuse me, objectively speaking, I gotta hydrate a little bit better. But no, literally, when you talk about, the contributions of people like, I think they coined them the squad. This is as representative as politics can get. So you have people like AOC that literally went from bartending to legislating, like in the most protected and esteemed corridors of power. And it didn't just inspire, women or women of Puerto Rican descent or women of Puerto Rican descent from the Bronx. But you have women of all creeds and colors, all different backgrounds, thinking that, they certainly are a member of Congress, that they're worthy of something like that. And so, she certainly has made the office more accessible. You even talk about her live streams, which I was not able to do successfully earlier. Hence now we're on Zoom, where she's literally breaking down, this is what's in the bill. And I think two things. I don't think members of Congress or elected officials, elected leaders in general, have the same inclination to translate legalese to their constituents. but two, just the patience and the desire to want their constituents to understand the process a little bit better. And again, contributions like that certainly deserving year round of how do we make public office more accessible? How do we encourage everybody to run who maybe doesn't have as extensive a political acumen as some of your more seasoned members of Congress? Because politicians are of a different breed now, for sure. In that it's no more about the German Shepherd and what's the other name of the dog? It's a really pretty dog. The golden retriever, that's what it is. So the golden retriever or the German Shepherd in your front yard, some white picket fences, the nuclear family is how they coin it. So, two children, maybe one woman, one man, or one boy, one girl, maybe two boys, maybe two girls. And of course, the wife that usually is probably wearing a red dress or so, while the gentleman is wearing some red tie in order to, embody the values of power. And yet, here you are with AOC and she's wearing tennis shoes. Like she's very much so accessible and very humanized in a way that I think is very healthy for our politics.
Yeah, I agree.
For sure. Well, hey, Jeria, I have appreciated your time thus far. Close us out. Tell us about the work that you're doing, particularly with your podcast. How can we support you and support the causes that you care about? Because certainly it's one thing to discuss. It's another to engage in meaningful ways that we can concede space to others and certainly celebrate their achievements and uplift their voices at a time of need.
Yeah. So like I said previously, I have a podcast called Black Girl Politics.
I think that is the most Michigan I've heard you ever sound.
Not
Michigan, excuse me. Not Michigan. Wisconsin. Y'all are right there. But they'll be like
real mitten state.
Okay. But they'll be like Michiganders, all my Michiganders and like
Wisconsin.
Right. My point exactly. So I think that you were like pick ass, and I was like podcast. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have Black Girl Politics podcast. We highlight Black women. We have a segment called Dose of Joe, where every week we talk about what Joe has done or hasn't done or needs to do. We highlight different Black organizations that you can donate to, different places where you can volunteer. And we also just highlight different policies that you probably wouldn't think about are political. Everything you do is political. That's our tagline. Everything about your life is political. But follow us on Instagram at BGP Pod. We are on a break because our Instagram is under construction, but we will be back very shortly.
Sounds good. And whenever you come back, Row Up Salon is certainly promoting it and sharing it as far and wide as possible. Jeria, thank you so much again for your patience, for your time, and for your advocacy. Because your achievements, whenever you acquire those wins, it isn't just women that it benefits; it's men and everyone else in between. So I think certainly the work that you're doing is impressive, is necessary. Any way that we can help support you, uplift your voice, advance your causes, please let us know. And let's be sure that we remind those that are watching that Women's History Month is not just women's history, shouldn't just be revered and highlighted in the month of March, but all year long. So certainly take an opportunity to learn just some of the few that you mentioned: Stacey Abrams, AOC. I'm gonna let you name that third one. Go ahead.
Claudette Colvin.
Yes, Claudette Colvin. Yes, all those women are certainly historic in their own rights. I believe actually Stacey Abrams was just nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. All of these women, historic, are game-changing, are truth seekers, are table shakers. Let's make sure that we support them as well and continue to educate ourselves on communities that, aren't our own. And issues that maybe not be our own. So thanks again so much, Jeria. I wish you all the best. Be safe, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.